what are your thoughts about how to lead with a level of consciousness toward the ongoing impact of racism in the workplace, even during the age of COVID, but beyond?
Yeah.
We hope to be beyond.
I think something you said just really resonates. I think one of the things that has been, just personally, so for lack of a better word, triggering, is work in some ways had been because you show up in this way where you kind of get buttoned up and ready, you kind of have to tell yourself something to show up, right? To do that. And so now everyone wants to have this conversation. It's kind of like, I've already knew this, right? This is in some ways deeply triggering because now we can't, there is no facade. It is like now everyone's aware that there is another pandemic happening, right? And it's been going on for a long time. And now we're all talking about it. And there's no easy cure, right? So we're sitting in this moment where we have all this awareness, and there's this tension because there is no quick fix, right? Similar to COVID, right? We have to become uncomfortable. We have to do some things differently, right? We have to wear a mask. We can't just go out and, meet and go to our football games and other things. And so it requires us to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable and doing the work to get to where we need to be, which is, a better place. And so I think specifically one of the things that companies can do is model that vulnerability. I think particularly for some, communities, I'll speak for, women of color in particular, we've always felt vulnerable, right? And so in this moment, that's now aware. So how can others meet us in that vulnerability, appreciate, accept that, and then also create community in that way so that it doesn't feel like you're alone on this journey, where people can also, self-disclose other aspects of their lives, create that connectedness. Because I do think a lot of the mental health issues underlying is this feeling of loneliness, of this feeling of, kind of being the only one, or now, all of your, all of the things, the burden you have to carry that comes with, racism in this world is yours alone. And so I do think there's power in groups coming together to share and model that vulnerability, and then doing the work, as we said before.
Yeah. And, and I would support everything that was just said. We know that having conversations helps. I think, and it's been for years in terms of education, discourse, the way to sort of get at some of the underpinning issues about racism and to help ourselves and others understand sort of the stresses that we go through on a daily basis. And I think we also need to take care of ourselves, and that we need to set boundaries, because there are some days I don't want to talk about racism, I don't. And we need to let that be okay, because it can also do harm if we always are just responding because somebody else now has been woke and they're ready to have the conversation, and you may not be at the same space. There are some days where I want to engage in that conversation, and other days I just want a different level of internal peace. And I think setting those boundaries, especially in this time, especially when it is such an intimate time in our society, and intimacy is just there. I mean, Zoom is exhausting. So one of the pieces about being well during this time is managing your boundaries on Zoom so that you're not on from 7 a.m. till 10 at night just because you can be, right? At the office, you get to leave the office and have a break and decompress and all of that. So I think that really beginning to say, okay, this is a wide open conversation in America today. And many of my colleagues, I mean, I'm getting emails, chats, you guys probably are as well, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Is there anything I can do? And my piece is, how come you weren't asking me this like a month ago? I was, I was the same person.
Yeah.
right? That a month ago, and it took a pandemic, a racial pandemic, for you to really notice that it's okay to ask me those questions. So I think in kind, it's okay for us to say, not today, guys. You know, I need a little peace for me today.
I would echo that and add that in some ways, particularly in the workplace, Black employees are experiencing an additional trauma, going from, a resistance to talking about race at all to wanting to talk about it at every turn because of the state of the world.
Yeah.
And so in the workplace, it went from last week, you were colorblind and you didn't see my color, and we danced around topics of race, to this week, you are fully embracing and standing with me as a Black woman, and you want to lean all the way into that conversation. That, swing of the pendulum is traumatic, right? Particularly for individuals outside of kind of our scope of work that aren't, well-versed in the research and don't have, the right strategies to provide their white colleagues who want to help. Because you are Black does not make you an expert on Blackness, does not make you an expert on race relations, does not make you an expert on what's next and what's the best next step. And so asking those who have been victims of the trauma to then solve said trauma is traumatic further.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Great point. And I think, and the learning curve for folks should, is on a continuum, right? So everybody's in discovery right now. And so part of my concern becomes, well, after you discover, then what? Is your behavior going to be different? Are policies going to be different? And are systems going to be different? Are we going to really say, we have inequity in our job descriptions because the way they're written, people of color can't even apply because they don't even fit the job description. So are we willing to look at that norm in our organization?